Hello, everybody. My name is Samuel Asher Weiss, aka Schnoogula,
And I'm Max Lamb, aka Selter.
and we're here to talk about Americana Dawn, both the music, which I'm responsible for, and the story that inspired it. And I'll be playing the themes on the piano as we talk about their genesis and their effect and how they play into the story. So here we're starting with the Wind Song.
So, the main story of Americana Dawn is following the journey of Foster, who's the spirit from the sea. He's named Foster because he was adopted by the Jamestown colonists who found him around, and they pretty much call him Foster Child, and that's where his name comes from. But during the massacre of 1622 between the Powhatans and the Jamestown colonists, he was lost to the Shenandoah Valley and spent 133 years in isolation. And during that time, all he heard was the sound of the wind, and that's where he came up with this theme song from in the story anyways.
Yeah, it was. I was really inspired by that bit, and this came almost immediately when I was slightly intimidated to originally work on it because I knew it was supposed to be a really central theme. But as soon as I sat down to attempt it, this came pretty immediately, and I was very happy with it. Alright, this theme is the main character Foster's theme, and this was at first a bit of contention about this theme because I had initially written it and I really liked the theme, and I was worried it was too sad because the character himself has, at least in the first half of the game, a happy-go-lucky quality, but there is a sadness underlying his arc and his character, so I wanted that in there. And so when I originally arranged it, I had dressed it up to be very happy, almost too much so, and so there was some concern. And so when that came up, I immediately went back and made an extra sad version of it, which you ended up really loving.
Foster is a bit of an unusual character. Like, the way he talks is purposefully grammatically off, and I noticed that a lot of people who watched the trailer was confused and thought that his dialogue was a grammatical error on our part, but it was on purpose. I remember one of the lines that people quote a lot is how he says, "Oh, I'm good at math and science, but I'm still trying to English better." And that was on purpose. Like, that wasn't a grammatical mistake on our part. It's just the way he's been isolated for 133 years, and he's just back into civilization. He's exposed to all these different things, but he struggles a lot to try and adapt and just to try and comprehend this vast and complex world that's colonial America, with all its different kinds of people. All the different cultures are in there, both from the European side, the Native American side, and of course also the African American slaves. And he's very naive, and it's funny because he's such a huge guy that's almost 7 feet tall. He's just a bit intimidating looking, and yet he acts like a child, doesn't really know any better, and oftentimes gets into trouble because of it.
Now, I understand he also gets a lot of attention from women and doesn't understand what's going on there either.
But his attitude and personality doesn't last throughout the game. After the French and Indian War, he starts changing a lot. He starts seeing things, and it starts influencing him very deeply. That's reflected in the theme, how it sounds innocent but has this very sad quality to it. And in the sad remix of it, it sounds kind of a bit exhausted and tired, and that's pretty much how he feels during the American Revolution. I know that most people portray the American Revolution with this patriotic fervor, but his attitude towards it is just this exhaustion. It's just after fighting for decades, not just the French and Indian War, but all these battles in between, he just wants it all to end. He just wishes that he just didn't have to fight anymore. But it's something that's happening on his home territory, and he has no choice but to partake in it. He can't run, it's just there.
Okay, here is Tam's theme, and I was very excited about doing this one, particularly because he's such a distinct character, his personality, and the way I structured it, I wanted to capture different aspects. I felt like underneath his Tams has a very cold, reserved exterior, but I felt like there's a deep passion, like a beating heart somewhere in there that you don't necessarily get a sense of in his actions, but you do through his affection for Foster. That's the most touching thing. It's like Foster is this innocent character, and Tams he gets frustrated with him all the time, but he does.
But he's his only friend that he has ever had in his long life. Thames is the spirit of the Thames River, obviously, in England. And people in England know him as the Grouch Lord of London Bridge. Like, before the Americana Dawn started, he was supposed to be this keeper of that bridge, and he'd just go around, just scream at people and holler at them and call them all these bad names, all these sinful people. He's a really odd character. Like, he's germophobic. He's a misanthrope. People just can't stand him. But he's your second main character. Even though we advertise Americana Dawn as American history JRPG a lot, it also touches on Canadian history too. Like this character Sebastian is one of the main characters in the game. He's actually a French Canadian and from India, one of the people who were expelled from their homeland just before the French and Indian War. And Sebastian, with nowhere to go, with his family gone, his fortune gone, he joins with the Rangers and pretty much tries to sabotage the British in any way and spends his whole life just pursuing revenge. He's a lost soul.
And his theme, interestingly, came sort of organically, more thinking about Quebec City itself for me and the sadness there, but also they have a hint of the pompous Frenchman, which is partially inspired by the arrogant aristocrat theme from Suikoden. So like a combination of that sadness and also because different versions, if you see in Sebastian's portrait, he's also a bit of a womanizer from what I understand, and a flirt.
Yeah.
So I wanted that to come through as well. But I personally prefer the more sadder versions of the theme, where I enjoy writing that kind of stuff for whatever reason, but I also like writing playful stuff. Alright, this is Tabitha's theme, which was written, well, this is one of the earliest things I wrote for the game, and the first version of it was more on a happier note. She's a slave at the time, as a little girl, and she has a sort of touching scene with Foster where he carries her around on his shoulders, and so I wrote a theme for that, kind of imitating the sound of a horse galloping for the accompaniment part. But then for the more personal version of her theme, we took some inspiration from Les Mis, which the movie just had come out at that time, and Castle on a Cloud, so I was a bit inspired by that.
So Tabitha's a runaway slave, and she bumps into Foster on her way up north to Canada. And at first she's terrified with this guy. It's like a huge 7-foot dude who just beat up these slave hunters. But one of the interesting things is that he doesn't understand what race is. And at first she's surprised that he just doesn't seem to have any biases towards her. And he tells her, well, you smell like a human. You walk and talk like one. What's not human about you? And I can see some people getting annoyed at Foster for being so strange and a little stupid, but It's that ignorance that also has this sense of wisdom to it too. And so she and Foster tag along for a while, and she makes him promise her 3 wishes. The first wish was for her to have a horse, and so she makes him carry her on his back throughout most of their little journey together. Second wish was for a full dinner, and the last wish was for her to be free. But unfortunately, Foster can't really help her with that, and so most of her character arc's about her trying to desperately escape up north. Cadence is a character that's supposed to represent beauty, and so the only people that can see her are people who see beauty in the world. In the first half of the game, Foster's this really innocent type of person, and he's the only person that can really talk to her and communicate with her. And she's also been his only friend during his time of solitude. But I guess one of the tragic things is in the second half of the game, she starts to disappear as Foster sees more of the world and feels more bitter and more cold.
Yeah, I was very moved by that initial description. That's what you told me, especially how, and I wanted how that really affect the player when it became apparent that she was no longer visible. And I know there's a lot of charming interactions between the two of them. Like she understands Foster's naivete and
kind of feeds into it a little bit. Like one time he asked her, "Is the moon really made of cheese?" And she's just trying to, yeah, sure it is. and like Thames, who humors Foster but does so to his own detriment. Like he kind of humors Foster so he can get a laugh out of it. Cadence is just sweetly just trying to let Foster dream. Let Foster just have his own weird fantasies about the world that's considered beautiful.
And I really like the portrait of, I think especially like that portrait that you're seeing now, you see the artifacts from the bottom of the sea where she spent time just wandering around at one point. So I think it's a really beautiful portrait, and that helped inspire the theme as well.
So it's been fun.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this and share this stuff with you. And if you like these themes at all of the music from the game, this is a special announcement. We're going to be adding, when this video comes out, a new backer tier where you can get a special limited edition, fully printed out sheet music book of all the themes for piano reduction from the game, the entire soundtrack. That will be released around the time of the release of the game and mailed out to you personally, with all of these themes and playable, within a moderate skill level, with including chord charts and lead sheets separate from the full arrangement, so that if you're just a complete beginner, you can even pick out the themes and be able to play them.
So if you're interested in the game, back us on Kickstarter.
All right.